I'm asked to talk about technology in the classroom. And I know that you either represent organizations who do Lincoln ESL or you are involved in teaching Lincoln ESL. So in trying to do that, I tried to think, okay, what is the meaning of technology to each and all of us? And I, kind of found images of our, very, very early days of classrooms. And, that's what technology meant at the time. So just to, go back and think about what technology meant to everybody. And we had this matador who, switched to language trainer in his free time. So language teacher could be anyone and everyone. And we have teachers who are sophisticated, like the person that we had in our group in the back who used the smartboard. So to me, it's very interesting to see how all this has changed our roles. And when you look at the research, it talks about shifting the focus from teaching into coaching. So I went online and put, as you said, a very important keyword, because it's very important what you put in and what you get. Put learning coach, because that's a lot that comes up in research. And when I put learning coach, I got 238 million results. And then I tried to put, and then a lot of the research talks about learner autonomy. It means learners have to be in charge of their own learning, and that's why technology is recommended to facilitate that. So I said, okay, let's see what we get with learner autonomy. And I got another millions, but there was tons, so I forgot to screenshot that one. So it was interesting to me to see how, I'm going to go back once, how this changes the shift. My backspace, sorry. How this changes the shift from teaching, standing in front of someone, to incorporating all that in our everyday classroom. And then I remembered that, we never say Blackboard enhanced classroom or pen and pencil enhanced whatever. What we say, there was called computer-assisted language learning, and now technology-assisted language learning, and now mobile-assisted language learning. Have you heard about MAL? Call and MAL and all that stuff. So we keep to think that in our daily lives, so we don't say TV-assisted living room or fridge-assisted kitchen or whatever. We don't say, why? Because we assume almost this technology, depending on its time and age, in all aspects of our lives, whether it's work-related or personal-related, except for when we're in the classroom. For some reason, the notion of technology becomes lively only when we're in the classroom, and it doesn't appear anywhere else. And so because we think that is an add-on, we kind of choose to put it aside and not bring it in. And why is that? Because of a lot of demands on us as teachers. There is demand on student achievement in K-12. You're talking about coordination of all that. Levels of accountability. We no longer can do whatever we want. We no longer can hire that matador in our classroom. We need to hire people who are trained. We have the new curriculum arriving at our door every few years. We have budgetary pressures. You all have to work more with less funding. I know the funders are in the room. And we have increasing levels of diversity in our classroom. We have, 30 people in our classrooms in ESL, 20 people in our classrooms in Link, and every few of them come from different cultural backgrounds. So the best we can do is, oh my God, let me just do what I'm most comfortable with. Let me do what I can do every day to the best of my ability, and leave me alone with these add-on thingies. And that has become our kind of survival mode in that sense. Meet Jeff Jarvis. He is a technologist, and he's an author. And he says that the problem is this, that me speak here in front of you, the audience. So he refers to you as the people formerly known as the audience. And he says that as long as we keep assuming that there is someone who's knowledgeable up here, and there are people there who need to acquire that knowledge, there is a problem in our thinking, because that's not how the world works these days. In our little group, I brought up an example of, remember going to doctor when you were little kids? The doctor knew, they would ask you questions, and then would give you a set of prescriptions. You did not have to say a word, just answer the doctor's question, and here's the magic result. Now when you go to the doctor, it goes, what do you think? Oh, I've got migraine. Oh, what do you think it's about? How do you think we should go about it? Like, I don't know, you're the body doctor. But they tell me, I don't have a magic solution for you. Why? Because the doctor is no longer up here, and I'm down here as a patient. We've come brought to par. And this is the kind of attitude we need to engage our learners in, that we no longer can assume that they have no knowledge, they're empty vessels, and we can kind of put knowledge in them. So how are we, so this, Jeff Jarvis talks about, how do we learn about the Google age? And he's talking about not to become educator. Like, he has a problem with the term educator. He says we have to be curators, in the sense that we don't need to create anything. We don't need to create a lesson plan. We don't need to create handouts. We don't need to create lessons. They're all there. We just need to be able to tap into what's important for the learners to learn. I think we're so busy thinking about how to teach that we kind of forget about what is it that's being learned and how are we going to measure that. So O'Rourke talks about, no matter what kind of sophisticated technology and tools you have in your classroom, no matter what kind of sophisticated curriculum you have in your classroom, no matter what kind of support you get in your teaching environment, all of it boils down to engaging your learners. And there are different levels of engagement. So if you talk to any teacher, they say, yeah, we're engaging our learners. And I have no doubt that every teacher engages their learners. But she's talking about different layers of engagement. And she refers to the first layer as a technical layer. That may be in an ESL classroom with no technology, could be just teaching them grammar out of context. I learned Jack and Jill, okay? And I had no clue who Jack was and who Jill was. I just learned them. And I learned to memorize them. And that's what she's talking about. If it's in a computer lab, it's just, this is a keyboard, this is a mouse, this is a screen, whatever. This is how you work it. That's the technical engagement. And then she says, if you dig in a little bit deeper, you get to the practical level. Maybe I can help my learners learn how to construct a sentence that is meaningful to them. Or in a lab, maybe you can use the Word to write up a letter, or use Outlook or Google to do an email. That's a practical level of engagement. And then she says, is that enough? She kind of questions that. That's the big paper she's talking about. She says, then the next layer, if you dig deeper, is cultural engagement. And cultural engagement is about, okay, if I'm talking to the audience, what level of language is appropriate for me? What kind of tone should I assume for this audience, as opposed to if I'm entertaining my buddies? If I'm writing an email, how is my level in terms of writing to my boss versus writing to my coworker or writing to a new employer in a cover letter? And these are the cultural assumptions that we make, and this is how we need to engage our learners to culturally become active in terms of internalizing what kind of engagement they should have to put into practice. And then finally she talks about critical engagement. Why am I learning this? How is this lesson important to me? And we're talking about out of context. We're talking about preparing lessons for the sake of lessons and not situating well with what the practices would be out there in terms of our learners. Okay. 5 minutes, perfect. Okay, never mind. Okay. We all are familiar with these terms. What about this one? Anyone knows what that is? Have you seen that before? This is Chief Unlearning Officer. Unlearning Officer. And this is Jack Aldrich, who is a chief, he's labeled himself as the Chief Unlearning Officer. I don't know if you've seen TED Talks. It's just a snapshot of a TED Talk. And what he talks about is that to see the world not as you see it, but as how others see it. Not as we teach it, but as how they learn it. This is how we want to teach, and this is how they want to learn. And if these two match or not. This is what unlearning is about, is we see E, I see it as this way, and you see it as that way. And these two are very different things. And we think we're talking the same thing, and that's your survey. How do you do outreach, and how do learners find things? Very different answers, and that's exactly the story of the two E's. So he talks about unlearning is not so much about what we know, but what we don't know. And if you're ready to go there. We're always comfortable in our familiar surroundings, aren't we? Okay? As humans, we're pattern-seeking animals. And anywhere that we seek the pattern that is good for us, we recognize, we stick with it. It's just like this. This is what we know at that level. And where we don't want to go is here. Okay? So it astonishes me that, how, when we talk to teachers, and you brought it up at the beginning, Amy, that either we say our learners are either too educated for us in terms of technology or don't know anything. We don't have time, we don't have the energy, we don't have the know-how, or they know more than us. So a lot of it may be perceived as if I bring technology, they know about it. Like I remember in my early days in a computer lab in 93, 94, I spent more time under the table trying to fix the wires than at the table trying to engage my learners. Because if I wasn't a techie, I couldn't teach the computers. But today, think about what you do every day in terms of using technology. Think about it in your professional lives and personal lives. You use your cell phones. You use your fridges and videos and VCRs and pay-per-views and PVRs and whatever. You probably use computer to do handouts. You research online, hopefully, to find good material for your classroom. You pay your bills online. Do we have ATMs enhanced banking? No, but when we teach banking, we use paper-based material to teach banking. Whoever goes to tellers these days to teach. If a 75-year-old goes to a bank, the teller will hold her hand, bring them to a teller, tries to train them to use ATM. And we are so oblivious to that, not incorporating that. Shopping. It shocked me when my kid walked through the door on a weekend and saw me reading a paper. He just rolled out laughing. Mom, you still subscribe to paper-based newspaper? And then I realized that was my unlearning to do. I was so used to that. It's not that anything is wrong with that, not that because I do it, but it's because I was so used to that I didn't see this is becoming obsolete in a way. And these kids do not even look at a paper-based thing. That a paper-based looking at a newspaper is odd to a 30-year-old. And that is how we need to shift our thinking, that our teaching, I don't want to use the word obsolete because teaching is as valid as it was 1,000 years ago. But what we are teaching is this E, and what our learners want to learn is the other way around E. And somehow we have to drive them together, and we're not. We're not. The settlement is not the settlement of 15, 20 years ago. It is not. It is morphed into other things, and we need to collaborate with them to make sure what they want to learn is there. I mean, we're so busy thinking how to teach that we forgot about what is being learned and how do we know our learners are learning what they want to learn, not what we want to teach. I leave you with that. Okay, thank you.